It's Saturday the, oh god, I need to put the thing down, brightness down. It's Saturday the 2nd of July and I am currently around at a friend's house with a group of drunk guys that are watching the football, but I've turned up late, so I'm still sober and they're still a bit pissed. So pardon the noise in the background, but I need to quickly do two to get myself up and running, because I've got to edit this quickly and get it uploaded before I can then go and start playing a bit of Star Wars Battlefront. So I'm going to do 2 tonight. Now I actually picked these 2 up off the shelf with a case of the name sounded interesting and kind of tied together, but they're tied together more than I actually realised. The first one I'm going to do is this one, Rowan's Creek, and the next one I've got is Noah's Mill. So I thought, well, you know, they're 2 people, it's somebody's creek and somebody's mill, so let's do those 2 together, and just that will start me off for tonight. But it turns out that Noah's Mill and Rowan's Creek, Rowan's Creek, Noah's Mill, are actually from the same company, called Kentucky Bourbon Distillers, or KBD. Now this Rowan's Creek sample is in one of the miniatures with a handwritten label on it, so I was donated this, but I've checked my spreadsheet and it doesn't say who it's donated from, so I think it might be James Hope, but I'm not 100% certain. So whoever did donate this, I do apologise for getting it wrong if it wasn't James Hope, but I have a feeling it was him. So Rowan's Creek is owned by a company called KBD, Kentucky Bourbon Distillers, which is also the Willett Distillery and the Willett Distillery Company. So this is a company that Willett's Distillery from the Willett family was set up in 1935. Now I'm not going to go too deep into its history, which is fairly convoluted, because I do actually have potentially a Willett's on the way. So I'll do the whole distillery itself when I hit the Willett's. But essentially, the company was set up in 1935. In the sort of 1970s, the distillery stopped making whiskey and started making ethanol because of the 1970s energy crisis in the US. They were basically making ethanol to go to, it was like a gasohol, it was like a gas equivalent. But when the energy prices then fell back, it pretty much killed the company itself. So in the 1980s it stopped distilling, but KBD carried on. They were using the stock of whiskey that was still around in casks, and then they ended up buying stock from other distillers and bottling them up themselves. Now they're actually quite a big company and they've got quite a few brands, but the majority of them are from other distilleries. So this Rowan's Creek, and here's a picture of the bottle now. Rowan's Creek itself, the label you'll see, or you might not be able to pick up, it just says it's the Rowan's Creek Distillery in Bardstown, Kentucky. There's no Rowan's Creek Distillery. This is stock that they've bought. So Willett's actually then, the Willett Distillery started redistilling. They actually refurbished, renovated the whole distillery, and in January 2012 they started distilling again. So between 1980s and 2012 they weren't making any of these releases that they've got. There's one called Old Bardstown, there was some Willett's. Now it will be a case of, once they get up and running fully and you've got some stock in barrels for the number of years that they need, Rowan's Creek and Noah's Mill and all the others will actually be from the distillery itself. But at the moment, these are all bought from other companies. So it's highly likely, although it's not guaranteed, but it's highly likely that it's actually from Heaven Hill. I'm going to put a map up now of where, if you were to Google route if you wanted to drive from the Willett Distillery to Heaven Hill, it's a mile. It's literally up the road. So it's probably more than likely that a lot of the stock, if not all, is coming from Heaven Hill. So Rowan's Creek is named after Rowan's Creek, which actually you might be able to have seen it on that map. Rowan's Creek actually runs through the distillery, and it's named after a guy called John Rowan, who was a judge and statesman in Bardstown in the late 1700s and early 1800s. So the creek's named after him. It runs through the distillery, hence them naming this whiskey after that. It's a small batch, annual release, it's about 12-year-old. In fact, I think it sort of states on the label it's a 12-year-old. So it's released at 50.05%. So it's 101 proof. No, it's 100.1 proof. Really, really specific. a little bit awkward, to be honest. But where this is from itself, in terms of which distillery in Kentucky it's from, we can't actually say for certain. Now, it's spirity on the nose, but it's not fiery. It's not on the back of your nose. It's just very, very clean alcohol, slightly minty. Not much kind of dark fruits, and it does look quite pale in the glass as well. Pale for a bourbon, to be honest. Not pale for a whiskey in general, but pale for a bourbon. But it's fresh and light. I also must apologise. I've taken all the gear around to my friend's house and I forgot the microphone. So I'm relying on the iPad microphone to be picking everything I'm saying up, because I ain't doing this again. Otherwise I'm going to have to put subtitles on the bottom. Now, 50.05%, and it doesn't need any water. It's actually got a really good balance. The freshness is still there, it's still quite light, but there's a lovely undertone of dark fruits and classic Christmas cakey bourbon flavours. That's really, really good. That's really solid. You're looking at about, now I found this online at Bevmo, which is in California, for $47.99. I've read in a couple of places that you can get it for about $35 to $40. The $35 to $40 for this, I think, is absolutely fantastic. It might be pushing up a little bit because we're getting into this small batch, quirky, handwritten labels, that sort of thing. So it's probably more likely $45 to $50. But to be perfectly honest, I think it's worth it for that. It's a lovely balance, and it's a nice spiciness to it. The alcoholic percentage, they've been really specific to 100.1 proof, 50.05% ABV. But if they've nailed it, they really have been. If they've been that specific, it's perfect balance of fire and heat of alcohol. There's a lovely, rich, smooth, dark fruit flavour. There's a bit of dark chocolate in there. There's a touch of mint. It's fantastic. It's really, really nice stuff. If you can find this somewhere in America for about $35, I'd snap it up. I couldn't find it in the UK. I'm guessing it's probably about 70 quid, that sort of thing. Because we've got to get it across the UK, and the premium of that, and the duty, and blah blah blah. And compared to other, Scotch and things like that, yeah, it's probably a bit more expensive, but it's a very, very good bourbon. So for 70 quid, if you're looking for a top draw bourbon in terms of quality, not necessarily a name like these Pappy Van Winkles are going for, I can't not recommend it. I think it's absolutely glorious. Something like the Elmer T. Lee was a really good classic, stereotypical representation of bourbon. It's got everything in bourbon that you could possibly look for. This is the next level up. This is a stereotypical representation of premium bourbon in terms of top-end bourbon. Really good quality, really good balance of flavours, complexity, depth. There's a good finish on it as well. Does not need water. Does not need water at all. I think that's absolutely fantastic. Right. I'm going to have a quick rinse out and crack on with its big brother, Noah's Mill. So I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.